Moving on to the regular agenda. Can I please have a motion? And remember, I'm a little hard of hearing, so don't be upset with me if I say the wrong person moved or seconded. Can I please have a motion for the Board of Education item number 1, regulations approval on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Lax, second by Mr. Seeler. Is there any discussion? Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu.
Yes.
Mr. Sismar.
Yes.
Mr. Hong.
Yes.
Mrs. Lax.
Yes.
Mrs. Reese.
Yes.
Mr. Seeler.
Yes.
Mr. Winston.
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to community programs. Can I please have a motion for community programs 2019-2020 fee schedule?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hung. Is there any discussion? All those in, oh,
Community programs here referring to, I do have a question. So
Okay.
there's going to be a fee increase that was mentioned, and at the same time showing revenues of $978,000 in net income. So I guess the question in our township of, very nice homes and the taxation, why would we even increase it? What would be the problem if we only made $900,000 as opposed to $978,000? Why can't there be some retrenchment? I don't know why we would raise the fees.
Joe, why don't you just sit up here, babe?
So the fee increase is being recommended to ensure that we can continue to offset money in the general fund, and also account for the increased cost in salaries that we're going to have, and costs for bringing in presenters. There's another big component of the district must provide nursing when applicable. We're seeing an increased enrollment in that population, so it helps offset those costs. So I understand the premise of, all right, if we're making or projecting to make 900 and something thousand, why do we have to see an increase? The increase helps continue, like I said, to provide that offset and cover these costs that we're seeing increased.
But wouldn't a lot of those costs be covered in the increased enrollment that you're demonstrating at this point, as I mentioned before in the numbers, 7-fold increases over 10 years? You actually have a 3-fold increase over 1 year on projected budget. I just don't see the justification. Why do you need more?
Well, if we don't have more and we cannot contribute to the general fund, we have to find that revenue elsewhere. And honestly, there's no place to bring in extra revenue. I wish there was, and, Mr. Giuliano can put his 2 cents in. It's something that we examine all the time to try to bring in additional revenue sources. And every time we reduce a revenue, we either have to cut in an expenditure or find a replacement, and we're so limited in what we can bring in.
From a layman's perspective and being involved in some of this stuff, yeah, it does seem like, and it was a nominal increase across the board, but it's a nominal increase to people that are using a service, and the 970-some thousand goes back to the majority of the township. So, and I don't want to say percentages because my numbers will be off, but if 20% of the people are using this service and there's a nominal fee increase to use that service, that surplus benefit goes to the other substantial number of taxpayers with children, without children, throughout the township. So that's how I see the numbers. It does seem odd to raise it, a nominal fee, but the greater good is to all taxpayers, whether they have children or not.
Also, something else, something we used to say when we did budget presentations, Jeff, if you took the same exact budget, let's say we took the budget from last year and proposed it for the next school year. We didn't add a thing, we didn't change a thing. We used the same amount of electricity, the same amount of paper, the same amount of buses, as everything. We didn't increase it by 1 penny. It would still cost more to run the same budget because the cost of everything else goes up.
I understand that.
So if you think about it almost like from a household budget point of view, if you don't get a raise one year, PSE&G isn't going to send you a letter, saying, hey, we're not going to raise your rates because we know that your salary didn't increase proportionately.
But, I also didn't bring in more people into that household who earns a salary. So it's really not an apples and orange comparison. There were more kids enrolling in this based on their budget projections. So the question, it's two questions. The easy way is, let's charge them more. The hard way is, let's study process. And if process can eliminate the need for more, I'd rather see something up front where we're saying, are we maximizing the resources that we have right now to keep costs under control and maybe even decrease the burden, and the current fee base would perhaps create a larger net at the end. That's the way I've handled budgets for 30 years.
Yes, and I'm no, not an expert with numbers like you are. The point I would think I was trying to make is if we enroll more kids, the cost of the program also goes up.
Can I
It
just-
doesn't necessarily stay the same regardless of the number. I think,
True, there are ratios of students to teachers and aides that have to be quantified. And the more kids that go in there, the more people we have to hire. We're also now entitled to sick days that weren't there in the past because of state law, that also need extra funding.
Right.
also because of the extra number of kids coming up, a very important thing that Joe brought up before was the cost we have to incur for nurses. If you're increasing the net, increasing the large proportion of kids coming in, there's a larger proportion of kids coming in with medical needs.
So in response to what you said, where's the data on the ratios where we stand right now? Is there any buffer room? And if there is, there would be an absorption rate on new enrollees into the program before there is a necessity and need. So that would be a data point that would be missing to answer to what you said, which is a good point, that I would need, I would need to understand that data point before I can easily just justify more kids, more need. Are we at capacity? Just like the same conversation that was had earlier. Are we? I don't know. I don't have those numbers.
Certainly, there should be an ongoing analysis of cost and ensure that cost is being managed prudently. That said, I think the point was made earlier that the participants are paying the fees, costs are going up, but the entire township benefits from the offset.
And Bernie, can you, do you want to address any of the points that Jeff raised?
So I have a question. So answer to my question, maybe help Jeff to understand this. So Joe, by percentage, how much increase for this fee? So because I was on that meeting, my calculation is between 1% to 2%. So what's the CPI for last year?
From last year, it was around 2%, 2.3.
No. Well, New York City CPI this year is almost 4%.
Right, so I'm referring to last year. New Jersey CPI hasn't been established for next year. But I will say, I think the recommendation is $4 for early morning, after school, and ELA per month. So that's a $40 increase,
For the year.
per child.
Yeah, certain program only increase $1, certain program only increase 75 cents.
Right.
So it's very minimal.
So, and as enrollment does, like you said, increase, we maintain a ratio per state standards. And I believe that's in the on the Excel long sheets that you received off to the right-hand side, where it states what the ratios are. So,
We're maintaining ratio. The unknowns are really when we have special students that need additional services. We must provide them under the law. Those are nursing services. It could require additional aides that can't be anticipated. We don't know when they come in, but they do come in. And we've had a number of those instances that end up having a significant impact on the program. So we have to allow for those instances. This is watched very closely each year, and not just annually, but through the course of the year. What's happening with the program? We look at the financials every month as we're going through, looking at what do we need to do to tweak the program. You know, is the staffing appropriate? Do we have too many staff or too few staff? That is looked at on a regular basis. This is not a once and done, the budget's it, okay, spend the money. It has a constant review. So, and the recommendation that was made to the Finance Committee was based on what the best estimates are going forward. So that's where we are.
Susanna also brought up something before that's important to remember. There's a constant cost analysis done in comparison to where we are in terms of other programs. If these programs didn't exist, what would the average East Brunswick parent have to spend on such a program? And we are consistently well below that. That's another thing we're doing. We're constantly doing cost analysis to see where we are comparable to market value. So it's always a hard decision when we decide to increase fees, and it's done so carefully and meticulously that, like Li Wu said, you'll see a program increase by 75 cents, another program increased by $2, and there's a whole set of data to support that 75 cents. And we agonize over that 75-cent increase the same way we would agonize over a $5 million budget line item, because every single penny we want to make sure is being maximized. So your concerns are very legitimate, Jeff, and I appreciate you taking the time to look at that data and give us the benefit of your insight into it. I think I would encourage you, if we can get you into one of the Finance Committee meetings, maybe a couple of them during some of these discussions, and you can get a little more in deeper with the numbers. If one of the members doesn't show up, or the alternates are not going to go, or I'm not going to be at the meeting, to help you with your understanding and education about the budget.
It's far beyond that. We're talking about, there's two data points you need to make a justification like this. One is process-based and one is financial-based. Yeah, you're right, but and you said it, and we're missing the data points to make that justification. You're absolutely right. We do need data on a lot of things. You didn't sell me. I'm just not convinced. Me not being in a financial meeting with a 30-year financial background, I would love to come.
Oh, no.
But that doesn't actually form my opinion. And so I appreciate what you're saying, but again, there's process and there's cost. And we have not been given anything here in process. We've only been told there's going to be an increase with no justification, other than there's going to be more people, more need, and we might have a situation where a nurse needs to be added. So then you have to ask the question, is that a proactive or a reactive response? You know, do we need to have the nurse before the kid, or do we get the nurse because we have the kid? And that helps control costs too.
What I think I was trying to say was, by inviting you, trying to get you into some of the finance meetings, you'll see that we have data-driven detail on everything, and that I believe any data you ask for can be produced by this department, absolutely. And that part of your education and growth can be to get you involved in the detail and the minutia. This is not belittling at all your personal experience in the world of finance, but this is part of your education of crafting a budget in response to the reality of the budget of the school district, which sometimes is a different animal.
I've had the benefit of seeing some of the details over the past couple of years of this community programs budget. I think they do an awesome job with it. And they've done benchmarking.
Absolutely.
And that's my position.
And again, I think any data that anyone requests, is absolutely provided. So I just wanted to just temper your statement about it's not founded in data and to reassure you it absolutely is. Anything else? Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to facilities. Can I please have a motion for the change order replacements at East Brunswick High School, Frost Elementary School, and Warnsdorfer Elementary School?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax, second by Mrs. Reese. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Moving on to the financial services, I want to call your attention to a revised item 4 that was on the dais for you tonight. So I'm going to ask for a motion to combine items 1 through 4 in the financial services
So
agenda.
moved. So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax,
Second.
second by Mr. Hung. Is there any discussion? This is items 1 through 4. Okay. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mrs. Lax?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Seeler?
Yes.
Mr. Winston? And President Becker.
Yes, motion carries. On the human resource agenda, I also want to call your attention to item 3 on the dais for you tonight, an addendum. Does anybody need a minute to look through it?
Yes. This one, item 3.
It was a personnel actions addendum roll call. That should be in the pile of documents that was left at your seat. Okay, so I'd like a motion for items 1 through 3 in the human resources agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax.
Second.
Second by Mr. Seeler. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, the secretary, please call the roll.
Mrs. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Hong?
Yes.
Mrs. Lax?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Seeler?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
President Becker.
Yes, motion carried. Moving on to staff development, can I have a motion to combine items 1 and 2?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax,
Second.
second by Mrs. Chu. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sisler?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to point out, and I know it's only 2 of the staff development things that are going on, but we spend a lot of money on staff development, which is excellent. But I want to point out number 1, okay? And specifically, the line says it's no cost to the district. What this was a collaborative effort between the Township of East Brunswick and the Board of Education here. So I wanted to thank Chief Conroy from the Police Department, Dr. Valesky, working with Mr. Figueroa and Mr. Natalicio on the security thing, and especially Mr. Austin Cossack from East Brunswick Township OEM. This is a potential life-saving training that could be used in a situation we hope we never have. And like I said, again, at the end of that, no cost. Compared to the line underneath, which is $45, and like I said, the $4,500 for it, that's fine. Training, fine. Spending money for training. When they find training that costs no cost to the taxpayers by working with the Township of East Brunswick, I applaud it.
And so
So-
valuable.
Yes, so thank you to everybody involved. Mr. Figueroa is here, Dr. Valesky's here, the other gentlemen are not, but I wanted to recognize everybody that I knew was involved bringing this forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank
Thanks,
you for
Mark.
pointing that out. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Moving on to student services. I would like to combine items 1 through 6. Can I please have a motion for that?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax,
Second.
second by Mr. Seeler. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr. Hahn.
Mr. Hahn.
Yes, for the item numbers 2, it says for the rate is 1,250 per assessment. I just want to know what the assessment means, what kind of assessment this contract will provide. This $1,000 is a pretty good number.
This is a specialized assessment for a student who's visually impaired. So normally our staff would evaluate a student. In this case, the student is visually impaired, so we can't do the assessment ourselves. So we have to hire a specialist to do the evaluation.
I just have a related question. What stuck out to me, besides the cost, because I don't know what a cost for an assessment is the gentleman is coming from Queens, New York. I don't know if he's coming from Queens, New York because $12.50 is a good price, or is there somebody between Queens, New York and here? Seriously, that we could get a more reasonable price, and I don't know the answer. So that's why is he coming from Queens, I guess?
Understood. We looked at several evaluators in the area, and he was the only one that was credentialed to provide the assessment, and it's a flat cost for everything.
Excellent.
But
Thank
we
you.
have
Yep.
searched high and low.
Thank you.
No
Yes,
problem.
apparently
And
so.
high.
So thank you, yes. Thank you.
Sometimes the needs are so specialized, so highly
Correct.
specialized, that if it is written into the IEP, which we all know is a legal document and must be adhered to, we must provide to this extent.
Mrs. Davis, just clarify for the board if you would.
Yes.
The immediate need is for one assessment for one student.
Correct.
And so what the request is, this is out there in case additional are needed, but none are forecasted right now.
Correct.
This
It's
is
just-
for one single assessment.
Yes, correct.
Any other,
Thank you.
Thank you.
any other discussion? Okay, will the secretary please call the roll?
Mrs. Chu?
Yes.
Mr. Sismar?
Yes.
Mr. Hahn?
Yes.
Mrs. Lax?
Yes.
Mrs. Reese?
Yes.
Mr. Seeler?
Yes.
Mr. Winston?
Yes.
President Beckert?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to transportation services, can I please have a motion for a joint transportation agreement with South River Public Schools?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax,
Second.
second by Mrs. Chu. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Okay, which brings us to committee reports. How are you feeling? We missed you.
Yes, I'm feeling much better. I wasn't able to report last time on your question, but I do have the answer to how exactly do the students view the elective choosing process, and if I should say EBHS is doing a good job at it. And overall, the reception is very, very positive. Many of the, all of the students enjoy the fact that we have so many options to choose from. So the fact that we have the elective fair, the fact that we have morning announcements where many of the students and teachers work together to showcase the work that they've done in each of these classes. Like I know myself, for Teacher Cadet, I will be on the morning announcements talking about my experience as a Teacher Cadet, which is an amazing program. But they talk about their different experiences and things like that, so that was very beneficial. And the fact that online we have resources for students to understand and access the different types of electives and understand the process of getting from introduction to photography workshop, or from the fundamentals of music to AP music theory, things like that. So it explains the pathway of the courses that you can take to get to a certain specialization, especially if you're interested in STEM, music, theater, things like that. So it is something that is very valuable to the school, and the students enjoy it very much. But we did get some feedback because, of course, to any process, there's always room to improve.
Absolutely.
So something that we did see is that there's an influx of students who come to the elective fair because it is so important to understanding the coursework and we had approximately 1,000 students in the cafeteria. And obviously, that's a lot of kids. So one of the biggest problems was space. And so things that we talked to improve that or combat that was possibly having different days for practical arts versus performing arts. So people could have an understanding of STEM electives or performing arts electives in which they could fulfill their course requirements while finding something that is interesting for them that they can take. Or we can have it spread throughout the school. So rather than just concentrated in the cafeteria, it would be similar to exploring different classrooms, seeing the class that they would actually be taking it in. Like I stepped into my introduction to photography class today, and I've never seen a dark room before, but it's so cool and so immersive. So things like that, things that we can get the student body to engage in. So that's kind of what we were looking forward to possibly applying next year in the elective fair. So we took those pieces of advice that we got from the student body, and we were very receptive in terms of hearing about it, and we look forward to implementing it in the next year. So that's in terms of the elective fair. It was very successful. We got a high turnout, and the scheduling process is going very well. There's also I also forgot to mention the fact that teachers also offer an understanding of elective choices. So although it's required to take 3 years of a science, many teachers do push forward to take a 4th year of science as well, whether it be AP Bio or AP Chem, things like that. Anatomy and physiology honors, like those kinds of courses teachers push forward. And it gives a good, so teachers also help in this process of having a better understanding of the courses the school has to offer. So that's something I think is also very important and instrumental to our elective choosing process. So that's enough about the electives. Time to go on to a little bit more about our stuff that's happening in our school. So last week we actually had midterms. So before that though, students need to study for midterms, right? So NHS spearheaded a tutoring session with all students, all of the honor societies, to create an environment where students could learn and ask questions and things like that and review in time for their midterms. So this happened the Thursday before midterms, and then there was another day as well on Tuesday for last minute stuff. But overall, as a result, we had a great turnout, and we're looking forward to implementing this for finals as well. And it promotes the EBHS 1 initiative. Going on to the Clash of Cultures. That's something that's happening tomorrow, and that's very interesting. Sounds very different. So International Club is hosting Clash of Cultures happening at 6 p.m. tomorrow. So if you guys want, come out and visit. It's amazing. So what they're doing is they're inviting all of the different language honor societies, as well as, the language honor societies, as well as clubs like Asian Club, and they're coming together to show the diversity of our community, as well as the languages that we have to provide and things like that. So that is something that I think is very vital to education as a whole. This is my personal belief, but it is something that brings the community together to embrace our diversity, because East Brunswick is a very, very, very diverse school, and it's something that we should appreciate. And we're taking the time to do that during the Clash of Cultures. So if you guys have a free Friday night, come over, watch our students. I think it will be an amazing experience. After that, I want to talk about AP IFL. So I'm part of the class, and this is something, it's my pride and joy, as well as I'm, of course, Mr. Broadman and Mr. Mondries, but we actually went out to a competition for civic education. So it's something that's very important, especially in a time where the world is very polarizing. So what we do is we go to a competition and we talk about government and how it applies to us today. And as high school students, civic education is something that's very important. Even though we're 17 and 18, it allows us to participate and understand the government in such a way that we can participate and possibly come to Board of Ed meetings or town hall meetings. And I've learned to understand the meaning. I've learned to value, I should say, not understand. I learned to value the importance of a Board of Education meeting where we can have an open caucus and talk to different types of people. And we won the competition, and we are representing New Jersey in the national competition. And
Great news, yeah.
And now, instead of it representing EB only, we are representing New Jersey, and that is something that our entire class is infinitely proud of. So I would like to thank our teachers, Mr. Brodman and Mr. Mondry, for their valuable support. Without them, we could not have done this. I would also like to thank administration. Dr. Vanilla actually came to visit us, and as well as the history supervisor, and that was an amazing experience because he gave us that opportunity to go there, as well as the alumni who helped us through many, many, many hours of studying and putting this all together, as well as the parents, and I want to thank my classmates as well, because overall it was a team effort, and we could not have done it without the team. So that's my report. A little bit long, but I hope it gave you good insight into the high school.
And I want to say, we had such confidence in the fact they were going to win, that this was on the agenda and prepared before you actually won the competition. Is that not true?
Absolutely.
Your reports are always a delight and never too long. I greatly appreciate you bringing us feedback on the question I asked you, and I'm going to encourage everyone to think of an issue, a question that you would like feedback on from our high school students. We have a wonderful way of delivering that question to and getting some real good feedback. I liked your suggestion about breaking up the electives. I've got a million questions I want to ask you, but I'd like everybody to think about it, and maybe next week somebody, unless somebody has something now, next meeting somebody else will have a different question. More?
I don't have a question, I just had a compliment. Sometimes people say, we're worried. As I get older, we're worried. Who's going to take care of us? And then, I'm sorry, I see you and the energy you bring and the students we have at our high school, and I'm like, things are going to be all right.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks in advance for taking care of us. Yes,
I might need a ride somewhere, when I get older and I can't drive anymore, but no, thank you. It's a positive thing that's coming in the future, is this youth and energy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Any committee reports?
So
Mrs.
I was actually at the high school yesterday for the orchestra and band day that Dr. Valesky talked
I
about.
forgot to mention that.
Do you like?
So we had a variety, but we had a variety of band directors from across the district explain the importance and the value of music education. Because music education is something that allows for us to create something as a group, and again, promoting this idea of the EBA Just One initiative where we work together. And music education helped to bring the entire district together at that moment. Or we had fifth graders learning different types of things from the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders from wind ensemble as well as orchestra. I'm part of the wind ensemble, and I play a completely different instrument, something that they've never seen before, the bassoon. And I got to give them that exposure to that instrument, and they were like, "What's that thing?" But seeing the interest in their eyes as they start to pursue. As they might pursue, I should say, not start to, but I hope that they do, start to pursue a different type of instrument. It's something that's very valuable because our district offers that opportunity for such a great music education program. So that is something that's very important, and that is something that band and orchestra day showed at that time.
It absolutely did. I am so sorry that I missed you because I was there for the strings section. So I am actually a little disappointed now. You kind of ruined it because I was so excited about the strings portion, and now next year, well, actually won't be there. All right, so I'm going to have to come see you. But it was actually really neat because, and look what I got. They gave me an I Love Orchestra sticker.
Oh, that's cute.
So, but Dr. Gopal on his chamber orchestra, I always love when we have the entertainers, as I call them here. I just sat there in that audience and just listened to them.
Yeah,
And they
it's
were so
amazing.
good. And then what was amazing was they did have all the kids in the different classrooms with a bunch of the kids. So I have to say, Daman on the violin, Lucas on the viola, Sally on the double bass, and Edwin on the cello. And the funny thing, I will mention Sally for 1 second, when they put the kids next to the fifth graders, and I thought, because I had to carry my son's double bass to the high school, as if my daughter playing cello wasn't bad enough, the best part was watching my 5th grader with a double bass next to the, I don't even know what grade she's in.
Sally's in 10th grade.
Okay, so Sally and my boy are just maybe 2 inches apart. So it's actually pretty funny. But they were so wonderful, and I will tell you all that you don't have to be jealous because there was a family night on February 26th. So hopefully you will all go. It's at Hammersholt. I think it's at 7. I do not know exactly. But they're going to have all the different musical geniuses there. So I would absolutely encourage you to go. And you will all be able to go and see the Clash of the Cultures with Ruthie tomorrow because I know you're all going to Memorial Bowl at 6:45 after. So we can support our friend here, and then we can support.
They can carpool with you.
They can carpool. I will give rides to the
All
old
right.
to the old people. I will
There
give
you go.
rides.
Now I might go to Pliable, not to the Memorial Ball, okay?
Pliables is going to have baskets there. It's St. Bart's will be represented because they're always so good to the community. And the funds raised are all going to the Unbroken Warrior organization. So
Good.
hope to see you all there.
Just want to move back one place before we get to more information items, and Lori, thank you for that. Were there any committee reports tonight?
Oh, sorry about that.
No, don't worry
I
about it.
jumped.
No big deal. Any committee reports? Okay. More information, oh, a committee report?
Information.
Whatever. Go ahead, go for it.
I wanted to just remind folks, Sunday, March the 2nd, it's a little bit in advance, but Fast Break is having My Buddy, My Pal Game Day. So a lot of people are familiar with this event.
What day is that?
It's a Sunday, March the 2nd. And for those that are not familiar with the Buddy program through Fast Break, it's basically 13 weeks. It has 2 1.5 hour sessions each Saturday. And they pair kids with special needs with other students who come in specially to help them to learn basketball skills. And it's a fabulous program. I've been covering it for EBTV for some years. They're all volunteers. And Coach Howard Alexander, his wife Maureen, John Alba, there's so many that come every week for years and years, devote their time to make this happen. And the kids are just so happy. This is the big ending day where all the kids come out, they clap for them, there's a huge screen. Greg T., who's a EB native and he's a Z100 radio personality, comes back, he shouts out all their names, there's pictures of them. It's a highlight of the year. So it really is a big event for East Brunswick, and if folks are around to come to support them, the more people that are there and cheer, it's just a beautiful day. It's inspiring. It shows how inclusive East Brunswick is and what a great community we're in. I also wanted to pass along that they are in need of volunteers. It is only 3 weeks left to the session, but they could still use help because some of the kids are in wheelchairs, they need additional assistance. So if you get community service, so high school students can come and get community service for that help. And then also for next season, I'm doing a plug. Also, they said they need more PALs. They're called PALs, the high school students that assist. And so you're getting the community service, but you're getting a lot more. It's a full heart. So it's a beautiful program. I know, Vicki, you've come to a lot of these events, and a lot of people on the board have come. It's a beautiful day. But March the 2nd, Sunday, it starts about 1:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Anyone else?
Me again.
Her again?
Sorry.
Don't
Very chatty
apologize.
tonight. I just wanted to go back to the Wizards that was mentioned before, if I could. Thank you for the shout out. Mike did do a wonderful job, but we have to say thank you to Trudy because she was absolutely amazing. She wasn't there 2 years ago, so she got to enjoy this for the first time. But you really did a terrific job. And it was greatly appreciated. The Education Foundation is so wonderful. But I also did want to mention that I think it's Northfield Bank, is that correct? Northfield Bank and St. Bart's were actually sponsors of the event, both big, longtime community supporters. And so I think that was worth mentioning,
And the
that we wouldn't have raised the
foundation.
funds if it weren't for the help of those two organizations as well.
And the foundation.
Well, the
to
foundation is just-
The volunteers at the foundation who are just amazing. Just give so much of their time and energy towards providing funds that go right back to our children, but also the amount of hours it takes to plan an event like that. So, thank you so much, East Brunswick Education Foundation. Anything else? Anything for the good of the cause of the board? Okay, we do have a need for a closed session.
Before you go into the motion, on the first item with the student numbers, going to add one student number, 109979.
Okay, so the East Brunswick Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting. And whereas the Board of Education intends to discuss matters as follows, what is on tonight's agenda for closed session?
We also have one more item, encroachment issue on Irwin property.
Okay. The length of the closed session is estimated to be 60 minutes, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action may be taken. Now be it resolved that the East Brunswick Board of Education will recess into closed session for only these subjects. Can I please have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Lax, second
Second.
by Mr. Sismore. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. We're going into close. Good night and thank you.